This video is for entertainment only. Do not attempt what you are about to see at home. In this video I will demonstrate how to remove and disassemble a coil-over shock from a Toyota Tacoma without the use of a coil spring compressor. Many people consider this method to be dangerous. The coil spring has a lot of energy. When it is compressed, if not handled properly, it may cause serious injury. The best method of disassembling a coil-over shock absorber is to remove the complete unit from the vehicle and take it to an auto shop. A professional auto shop will use a bench-mounted spring compressor similar to this one. But many people are do-it-yourselfers. If that is you, I recommend renting a hydraulic spring compressor, like this one. At my local auto parts store, the only spring compressors that they rent look like this. The two screws need to be tightened in equal increments, or the spring compressor can fail. Also, with a very strong spring, the bolts may become difficult to tighten. I do not recommend using this type of compressor. Now, the first thing you should do is support the vehicle using jack stands under the frame. After removing the tires, use a floor jack to support the lower control arm. In this case, I had to use a 4x4 block of wood to achieve the proper height. Begin to jack up the lower control arm until you start to see the suspension compress about an inch or so. Then you can remove the two bolts connecting the lower ball joint attachment to the steering knuckle. You will also need to loosen the two bolts connecting the lower control arm to the frame. Before doing this, I marked the location of the alignment cams. This will make it easier to align after completing the job, so you can drive to an alignment shop. I attempted this process without loosening these two bolts and found that the lower control arm will not drop as far as I needed. Next, you can remove the top nut, washer, and bushing connecting the top plate to the coil-over assembly. The shock absorber has positive pressure, so the shaft will not slide down. It will stay up inside the top plate. As you can see from this video, the top nut has been removed. The lower control arm is supported by a floor jack and the two bolts have been removed from the lower ball joints assembly. Now you are able to slowly lower the floor jack, which will decompress the coil spring. As you can see, the coil spring will not fly out and injure you because the center shaft is still in the top plate hole and the bottom of the shock is still bolted to the lower control arm. Here you can see that there is no tension on the lower control arm. All of the compression has been removed from the coil spring. Now you can remove the bolt connecting the shock to the lower control arm and remove the spring and shock. Note that the top plate is still bolted to the vehicle. As you can see, with the coil-over shock removed, the lower control arm is free to hang straight down. To reassemble the coil-over shock, insert the unit the same way it came out. Make sure to place the rubber boot over the top of the coil spring and align it properly. Then reinstall the bolt connecting the bottom of the shock to the lower control arm. If you have a shock with a removable lower plate such as Bilstein 5100 shocks shown in this video, you may need to rotate the coil spring until the center shaft of the shock aligns with the hole in the top plate. As you can see here, the shaft of the shock is centered in the top plate hole and the rubber boot is aligned properly. The spring is still not under any tension at this time. Now it is time to use the floor jack under the lower control arm to begin compressing the spring. The shock absorber shaft will rise through the center hole of the top plate. Once the shaft stops moving and the suspension continues to compress, you can reinstall the bushing, washer, and nut on the shaft. When tightening the nut, if the shaft begins to spin, you will need to hold the shaft with a wrench. With the jack still under the lower control arm, reinstall the 2 bolts connecting the lower ball joint to the steering knuckle. Next, you can lower the floor jack. Don't forget to set the alignment cams with the marks you made earlier and torque all bolts to the recommended specifications. With any suspension adjustment, you should take your vehicle to an alignment shop to get it aligned.